What if I told you a band once called Free Beer almost made it big and then got buried alive by the same label that stole their sound and stopped answering their calls? Here's how the best band you never heard fought their way back from silence.
Like, subscribe, thank you.
The Strip was the capital, no doubt. Sunset ruled the late 80s, a glitter-smeared circus of Aquanet and attitude. Reverend Band looked like they were auditioning for the same cocaine-fueled pirate movie. But while L.A. chased the next anthem about sex and whiskey, something dirtier, more real was cooking in Memphis. Tora Tora didn't just come out of a scene, they came out of a sound. Baked in the same city that birthed Stax, Sun, Sweat-Soaked Blues. These guys fused heavy riffs with a southern drawl that you just could not fake. They weren't trying to be pretty, they were trying to hit you in the chest. And for a moment, they did. Major label deal, MTV. The ride to the top felt like destiny. But the machine that brought them up was the same one that yanked the floor out, fast, impersonal, and cold as concrete. What came next was not glamorous, but it was definitely real. A fight to keep that music alive. It kicked off in 1985 with a joke. Free Beer. That was the name. The kind meant to lure barflies through the door and make bookers do a double take. Behind the gag was a crew of Memphis lifers. Anthony Corridor belting out vocals, Keith Douglas on the guitar, Patrick Francis locking down the bass, and John Patterson pounding drums. No pedigree or plan, just four kids tearing through covers in a garage, butchering the classics and figuring out fast what not to do. And that trial and error chaos turned into songwriting, and then into identity. The secret weapon? A warehouse. Keith's dad owned it, and it doubled as a rehearsal spot and full-blown underground party zone. Beer, amps, no rules. It was low-key genius, DIY marketing without realizing it. Word got out, crowd showed up, and before long they were booking bars. Quarter wasn't even legal to stand in. No label or manager, just sweat, distortion, Memphis buzz building like a slow boil. But they needed a serious name. The name came from a list, a throwaway suggestion from a friend, straight out of Van Halen's lexicon. Tora Tora. It sounded dangerous and sharp, something like you would hear before a bomb dropped. Feel that bull just charging against you. By June of '87, all that warehouse sweat finally paid off. They entered a local battle of the bands and walked out with the golden ticket. Recording time at Ardent Studios. Not only a win, it was sacred ground. Zeppelin had been there, ZZ Top, and now it was Tora Tora's turn. They cut a DIY EP called Rock to Roll, which is raw and loud and definitely confident. A local station, Rock 98, took one listen and blasted it. Phantom Rider, Loves the Bitch. Suddenly these Memphis kids were getting real spins and real buzz. Back then, radio mattered. It wasn't about likes or viral reach. It was about whose song shook your dashboard of that drive home. And that noise found its way to A&M Records. And when it did, the major label sharks started circling immediately. Once A&M signed them, the backlash kicked in fast. Whispers followed them into every venue. Spoiled kids, trust fund rockers, studio pets who skipped the grind. And it wasn't totally baseless. Some came from decent homes, and yeah, Keith's dad fronted the warehouse and helped bankroll the dream. But that didn't mean that they hadn't bled for it. The band knew what people were saying, and they did not flinch. They just played louder and tighter, harder. But after all, it was Memphis. They didn't hand out credibility. You had to take it. And Tora Tora earned theirs the brutal way, night after night, shoulder to shoulder with bar bands who'd slit throats for airplay. The gossip never matched the work. The music made sure of that. May of 1989, Surprise Attack dropped like a brick through a plate glass window. Joe Hardy and Paul Eversold produced it, and the thing hit. Bluesy riffs soaked in attitude. It was different. Quarter's voice cut like a blade, soulful and muscular, unmistakably southern. Every single track locked in tight, no filler. And the cover, pure chaos marketing. A fighter jet dive bombing a bikini-clad sunbather. It pissed off just enough people to make it stick. Promo posters flew off the tables. Tora Tora wasn't just on the shelves, they were visible. And then came Walking Shoes. Hard blues stomper that just kicked the door down. The video, filmed right on Beale Street, was pure Memphis swagger and landed heavy on MTV. And suddenly, the band that was cutting EPs in a warehouse was on rotation next to the big dogs. The single cracked the Hot 100 at 86. The album climbed to number 47 on the Billboard 200. Over 200,000 copies moved. Quite respectable. And just to seal the error, in Amber, Dancing with a Gypsy showed up on Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventures soundtrack. If you were alive in 1989 and had a pulse, you heard of Tora Tora. And then came the road, the proving ground, the meat grinder, the Wild West. Tora Tora hit it hard. landing a killer tour with LA guns and dangerous toys. And that run clicked. No posturing or bullshit, just a bunch of southern fried misfits tearing it up night after night. And Patrick Francis called it out plain, so we had this southern thing going on. Felt like a family, but not every tour was a love fest. They hit the road with Bonham and walked straight into Sabotage. For those of you who have not heard of Bonham, that's Jason Bonham's band. And Jason was the son of John Bonham, drummer for Led Zeppelin. I met him. He was kind of a boorish dude, and he was quite drunk at the time. He wasn't somebody that you would exactly want to invite over for dinner during those days, but apparently he's cleaned up his act. Anyway, so they hit the road with Bonham, walked straight into Sabotage, came back to the dressing room one night, trashed. Total war zone. And somehow they got blamed, billed for the damages. Took weeks before it came out that Bonham's crew were the ones playing Rockstar Wrecking Ball. And then in Canada, it flared up again, this time with Slaughter. Their bass player, Dana Strum, got heated over shared stage gear, started barking, and suddenly it was ego versus ego in a hockey arena hallway. But this was the big leagues. Every night a new town, every backstage a new trap. But this was the life they signed up for. Loud, volatile, always teetering on the edge, just the way rock and roll liked it. But by 92, the sky was already turning black. Wild America hit shelves as the storm rolled in. Musically, it was a step up, richer, much more confident. They brought in the Memphis Horns, no less. Real deal soul pedigree. The songs dug deeper, stretched further. This wasn't party rock, it was southern and grown, but still loud and textured. But none of that mattered. The ground had shifted violently. Seattle had kicked the door down. Nevermind wasn't just a record, it was a guillotine. Overnight, anything with polish, groove, or a trace of hairspray got lumped in with the dinosaurs. And Tora Tora, despite never fitting that LA mold, just got thrown in there with the same death sentence. Wrong place, wrong label, wrong time. Wild America should have been their ascension. Instead, it was their industry obituary. Keith Douglas saw the writing on the wall, and it wasn't scrawled in eyeliner, it was in corporate memo paper. A&M, the label that signed them, was now backing Soundgarden. 1 foot in the past, 1 foot charging into Seattle's future. The shift was not subtle. Wild America, despite being a better record in every way, barely cracked number 134. Wrong look, wrong vibe, wrong sound apparently, and Tora Tora didn't sound like Poison or Warrant, but none of that mattered. To the suits, they were just more hair metal. And hair metal was now radioactive. But the death blow didn't come from the fans or the critics, it came from upstairs. During the Surprise Attack tour, A&M got swallowed by Universal. New ownership, new agenda. The old playbook got tossed, and anybody without a current hit got the axe. Their A&R guy, the one who believed in them, was gone. And once he left, so did their lifeline. Suddenly they weren't artists, they were inventory, totally disposable. Tora Tora had walked into the future with a killer album and no one left to answer the phone. And by 94, they had one last bullet in the chamber, Revolution Day. It was their best work. Smarter, deeper. Sound of a band that had leveled up and knew exactly who the hell they were. But none of that mattered. A&M was done with them. No tours, no radio, no budget. The album got shelved. Just like that, and when they missed the delivery deadline, probably already knowing the label didn't care, they were cut loose. Quietly. No press release, a farewell tour, just gone. The fallout hit hard. Patrick Francis shut down completely. 6 months staring at a bass he could not even touch. Anthony Corridor spent the next 2 years just gutted by the sudden loss of identity. Keith Douglas summed it up without ceremony. All of the major labels just shed artists like them. That was the game now. One day you're flying, the next you're a relic. They walked off the stage and into the real world, raising kids, clocking in, watching the lights go dim. The dream didn't crash, it evaporated. But for a long time, Tora Tora lived in the past, just another name etched into the granite of late 80s rock. But on September 10th, 2001, something flickered back to life. A fundraiser gig at the Blue Monkey in Memphis brought the original four together on stage for the first time in nearly a decade. No press or grand announcement, just a bar, a crowd, and a sound that hadn't lost step. The next day, the world changed forever. But for one night, Memphis got a piece of its soul back. And the spark didn't die, it simmered. By 2008, the band was whole again. Anthony, Keith, Patrick, John, locked in and loud. They headlined anniversary shows, packed clubs, lit up the stage at Rocklahoma. Tora Tora weren't just back, they're actually proving that they never really left. In 2010's cracked the vault. F&A Records started digging through the archives, pulling out the ghosts of Tora Tora's unfinished story. Before and After dropped first, a raw glimpse into their evolution, but the crown jewel came in 2011, Revolution Day. 17 years that album laid in limbo, finally unleashed. Fans finally got to hear the album that should have changed everything. It was a resurrection, not just of music, but of momentum. But then came that gut punch. In 2016, Patrick Francis was diagnosed with cancer. Everything paused, but Memphis did not. The scene rallied. Friends, fans, musicians, full hometown mobilization. Francis pulled through, and something shifted. The band felt it. There was clarity now and urgency. And, of course, gratitude. They weren't just playing for the crowd anymore. They were also playing for each other. And then came the Monsters of Rock cruise, a floating time machine packed with lifers and diehards. Tora Tora tore it up, and the world noticed. Offers started coming in. Frontiers Music SRL reached out with a deal. 2 albums, new material, a real shot. And this time the band did not hesitate. They signed that thing in a heartbeat. In 2019, they came full circle with fire still in the tank. Bastards of BL landed like a hammer. The first new album in over 20 years. Recorded legendary Sam Phillips recording in Memphis. No filters or trend chasing. Just those nice, gritty riffs, soul-drenched vocals, and a sound carved straight from the city that raised them. And then came the moment that said everything. The video for Son of a Prodigal Son was shot at Handy Hall on Beale Street, the exact same stretch of pavement where they filmed Walkin' Shoes 3 decades earlier. Same street, same band, but this time no illusions. Just 4 lifers still standing and playing. It wasn't nostalgia or survival, and it hit harder than ever. So this isn't your typical rise and fall story, something more rare. Survival with soul. The industry tossed them aside, rewrote the rule book, erased their chapter, but they kept going. Not for the trends or the charts, but for each other, for the music. Tora Tora didn't chase the spotlight. They became the kind of band that really kind of outlives it. Because when the noise fades and the labels fold, what's left is what's real. And Tora Tora, they're as real as it gets. Thanks to my subscribers, you frigging rock. And if you haven't had a chance to subscribe yet, do a spinning back kick and give the subscribe button a nice whack. Spin around the other way and give the like button a good whack. Join the family. I want to thank you so much for watching.